In 1914, a whole generation is drawn into the world's first mass war. 70 million men from over 20 countries will be called up to do military service. As they enlist in the new mass armies, they become numbers in a war of numbers. And over the next 4 years, more men will be slaughtered more quickly for less gain than ever before. When the war broke out in August 1914, none could imagine the horrors that lay ahead. Going off to war was still seen as a great romantic adventure.
Es war eine Hurra-Stimmung sondergleichen. Überall Fahnen.
Everyone was wildly enthusiastic. They were all waving flags. People threw flowers at the soldiers, and they stuck them into the end of their rifles. They were given cigarettes and chocolates. Their mothers or wives ran along beside them, and everyone was singing, "We will meet again in the homeland."
In der Heimat, da gibt's ein Wiedersehen.
Each nation had alliances to honor, old scores to settle.
All over the world, there are young fellows who say the war is just an adventure, and it's our country, and it's patriotism, and it's partly to get decorations. It's a mix. It's a mix, and it's wonderful because you get away from family and so on. You're all of a sudden on your own at 18 or 19 or 20, which is great.
The French had feared German aggression for years. Now they hoped the threat could be ended once and for all.
We really believed that the French army would perform miracles, that it would reach Berlin in 48 hours, no more than that.
48 heures à Berlin, rien ne nous étonnait.
We didn't think for one moment that the war would go on for so long, or that it would be so cruel.
Si cruel, pas du tout.
People everywhere believed what their leaders told them, that they would be better off after the fighting, and that the soldiers would be back soon. In St. Petersburg, Russians were mobilized to fight for the Tsar. In Vienna, the soldiers of Austria-Hungary were ready to fight for the Habsburg Empire. At the start of the war, Britain was the only country that still relied on volunteers. But men flocked to the colors, fearing they'd miss a war that could be over by Christmas.
The atmosphere, it was certainly electric, but almost unbelievable. We now were excited about it and all ready to join in because everything had been rather too peaceful almost until that time.
Mobilization plans that had taken years to prepare were implemented quickly. It was war by timetable. Special train schedules dispatched millions of men to the fronts with all the industrial efficiency modern governments could command. Men were absorbed into the new mass armies, leaving their individual dreams and personal ambitions behind. The war soon touched every corner of the globe as European countries turned to their overseas empires for additional manpower. 300,000 men came from Australia alone, and from New Zealand, South Africa, and Canada.
In Australia at that time, we were part of the British Empire and were very loyal to Britain, and we felt it was our war. It's a bit different today, perhaps, but at that time, that was the feeling. Apart from which, if you stayed a year or too long, you'd have got a white feather from the girls. No, it was a thing to do.
More than 100,000 men were hurriedly shipped over from India. Upon arrival in France, they were issued woolen underwear. KUNGA came from a village on the Burmese border.
I wanted to take part in the British government's war. I wanted to see Western countries for myself. We were told they were healthy places.
The French imported contract workers from China to do heavy labor. More soldiers came from French colonies in Africa. And after 3 years, the war would bring in the world's strongest nation.
Your Uncle Sammy needs you one and all. Answer to his call.
At first, America wanted no part of a European war. Its standing army numbered only 130,000. But by 1917, the United States could no longer remain neutral, and over 4 million Americans were rapidly drafted. Among them was Albert POWIS.
I liked America. I guess I was patriotic. Because every time I heard the band play a good marching song, I'd have cold chills run up and down my back.
One Wisconsin unit had the 3 Fuller brothers, each caught up in the new patriotic fervor.
I went down and joined because I thought it was the thing to do. People were going and that was it. Some of us were called in for guard duty, and I was one of the ones, and my younger brother Ralph was called up. And later on, Earl joined us. He signed up. We just feel that was what we were supposed to do, and so we did it.
African Americans comprised nearly 8% of the American forces. They served in separate units, but were told, like all recruits, that their mission was to defend democracy.
I'd never heard of democracy before. I never knew what the hell I was fighting for. All I knew, I liked the uniform and I wanted to be in the army.
It's your country, it's my country, with millions of real fighting men.
Most American soldiers had rarely ventured beyond their hometowns. Now they were being shipped across the Atlantic in their thousands toward an uncertain fate.
In the distance we saw Statue of Liberty. And we had a bunch of comics on the show, on the boat, you know, and one of them said, "Did you hear what that statue's saying to you?" And we said, "No." He's saying, "That's your ass, big boy, that's your ass." That means you're never coming back. You're gone.
This war was new, not only for its worldwide scope, but for its use of the devastating products of the machine age, automatic weapons. Machine guns firing 600 rounds a minute changed the very nature of war, enabling massive slaughter never before seen.